Welcome to our course. I am your instructor. Just bringing up the video here. I'm your instructor, Erica Reed, but you can just call me Erica. And this serves as an introduction to the actual course, and it just kind of covers a few things that might be relevant to our starters. So let's just dive in. So I wanted to start, this course actually matters a lot when we think about how we grade, what we grade, the purpose behind grading, and a lot of different things that impact grading. So this course starts off with you telling your story about who you are as a student, the impact of grading that grading has had on you, and then it goes into how you see yourself within the topics of assessments and grading, which is how I shared a little story example after that. But the purpose of that is to really look at the overall, why grades and assessments matter. We are the facilitators of the assignments and also the creators of what we consider as important grading aspects in a class. So this is almost as important, if not more important, than our classroom management and also teaching approaches. So the three areas we'll be looking at in this particular course is how we grade impacts students' outputs and trajectory. So meaning that we create the I guess the definition of what terms quality work, and also what it means to be passing, or we create what happens to the student sometimes at the outcome. They have their part, which is to do the work, but our part as the creators and the types of assignments that we make impacts greatly what happens to them as in the summation of the year. So I think that all in all, we have a lot of power to change some of the future outcomes of students if we adjust and align our grading techniques to fit who they are. And then the next area, what we grade labels the kind of student a child is. So I think this is particularly important because I think we've forgotten sometimes what grades symbolize, and because they're the first factor that is transferred with a student regardless of where they go. It tells the story of their academic life. So it's important for us to keep in mind that we're writing the student's academic story. They are a part of that journey because they have to, like I said, complete the work, but we create the work that is being assessed and the quality in which it is assessed by. Why we grade impacts the result of what we assess and how it totals at the end of the year. So all in all, grading and assessment has a huge impact and outcome on everything that happens in the classroom, and it's important for us to kind of focus in on certain things like impact versus intent of grades and assessments. So what I've found is often we form assignments that are meant to show the great qualities of students. However, the outcomes produce the opposite results, or they demonstrate areas of failure or gaps in learning that require further assessments, which is not a bad thing, but sometimes that's not the intention of the assessment or the tests or the grading procedure that we do. And then sometimes the outcomes work for some students and not for all. So you'll see like huge gaps in students who have higher achieving consistent higher achieving rates versus students who have low achieving rates. A lot of that has to do with how grades and assessments are placed. And then sometimes the outcomes of our assignments trap students into a cycle of failure. So for example, if you have a student who often is going to be absent from class, you may have to change the way in which you grade and assess. Why? Because obviously if they have challenges either emotionally or personally that are pertinent to the school environment or in their home life, it's gonna impact their ability and how they are able to complete assignments. So as an instructor, it's very important for you to kind of watch and see how students' lives show up in the classroom and how they show up in the classroom, because you don't want to put them on a cycle of failure, which can happen if assessments and grading techniques are not tailored to the students that we serve. So overall, this is just a brief part. You will see in the next few slides that there are more descriptions of the purpose of the course and of the objectives, but the two main goals here are to learn how to grade more effectively for the students of today, meaning 21st century learners with diverse cultures, diverse backgrounds, diverse skills, varied abilities. We want to make sure that we're meeting their needs. And then also methods of strategically creating a variety of formative, summative, and progress monitoring assessments, which is something I think I've gotten a little bit, actually a lot better at over the few years, because I've been challenged with a lot of different environments, especially in the South, where I started my teaching career, and a lot of the inclusive settings had such a wide variety of students that it challenged me to really think outside the box and create a lot of great ways to help students show what they know. So along with those two, kind of the overview, I have decided to start this course with a few shared definitions. So this PowerPoint serves as a kind of checkpoint. You can always go back to it and kind of look back at where we came from versus where we are. So I feel like we all have a shared understanding of grading and assessments. And these are some of the things that we all know and all agree to, pretty much, that assessments and grading mean. So assessment systems, the process of collecting, synthesizing, and interpreting information to aid in educational decision making. What is an evaluation? The use of assessment information to make judgments about students, teachers, or educational programs. Measure, meaning and therefore assessment method, a process involving a structured situation that includes samples of particular characteristics or behaviors that result in a numerical or narrative score. And then the measurement itself, also known as the assessment, a process involving a structured situation that includes samples of particular characteristics or behaviors that results in a numerical or narrative score. So we all know pretty much these elements of, there's one more, of what it means to grade and what it means to assess, but I wanted to make sure that we're on the same page. And then lastly, test, what they are, and then grading, what that is. Test, remember, is formal set of questions or tasks. Formal meaning not informal, and there are two differences on purpose, and to ensure that students have an opportunity to gain the skills they need. So we'll talk about those a little later in the course. But often, tests are often administered to a group of students that includes samples of particular characteristics or behaviors that results in a numerical or narrative score. And then grading, defined as the process of using a formal system for purposes of summarizing and reporting student achievement and progress. So all in all, these to me define where we are as a education system in America, as far as what we see as grading and assessments. And I believe that a lot of these definitions actually have created and are centered within the practices that you have today within your schools. So I thought making sure that we all kind of have a understanding of these would be beneficial in the long run. So feel free to go back to them, because they kind of put everything at the base. And I like the way it says numerical or narrative, because remember, there is a variety of ways to test students. So last but not least, what are our next steps? So this course is pretty simple. I try to make sure I'm communicating things in an effective manner on a weekly basis. So if something comes up to me, I'll literally add an announcement and just make sure you understand what's going on. So as we journey through our course, make sure to follow along each week. That's super important, as if you fall behind, things kind of get a little more confusing and harder to manage. Course content opens on Saturday, So that means that if you plan things out right, you can have everything done by Saturday, start the new course content on Sunday while I'm grading. My grading day is Sunday. I share that with you because that's one of the flaws in our grading practices as teachers. If we assign things that we then are not grading, it becomes purposeless. Or relevant. So for me, one of the things I do is set. I do not, and this is something I learned from being a secondary educator, is that I do not assign things I cannot grade. So if it's within a week and you have a amount of assignments, typically that means that if I can't grade it, then it's too much for you. So I've learned to tailor my assignments to the working method of students, and I can still get the same amount of quality and sometimes quantity within the course itself over the period of time, but it's just a matter of how I set the pace. So that's why I share that day with you. And then also interact with your peers in a purposeful manner. Engage with them in a way in which can actually benefit you as an educator. I'll also say if there are group assignments, work together. I know that there is at least one new student in the course, so I hope that you have a great opportunity to collaborate, and then ask questions when in doubt. I think we don't ask enough questions because we feel like we're intruding on the professor's time. But I'll be honest with you, I'm a secondary educator first. I'm adjunct second, which means that my first career in love started in the classroom as a preschool teacher, and then I moved into secondary education once I finished my master's degree. So honestly, although I am your adjunct professor for this course, I really am a teacher just like you, so don't feel bad about asking me questions because this is my job to be there for you as a student in the course and also as a peer. Reflect on your personal practice in a real manner. This will matter especially in this course. I've found that those who actually reflect on their practice, and if you don't know how to do that, take the next course. But I've found that people who really look at their practice benefit the most. I've got a lot of reports from different students that have been in my classes over the last 2 years through Turo, and a lot of their responses have been personalized due to their experiences being integrated into the classrooms. Okay, that is it for this course, or this for this part 1 of the recording here. And part 2 is a part of the actual module 1. So I hope that you enjoy the course and have a great day.